In 2015, Volkswagen, one of the largest automobile manufacturers, was exposed for utilizing defeat devices that allowed its diesel vehicles to produce fewer emissions while being tested. According to the EPA, Volkswagen violated the Air Act by the sale of over a half a million 2009 to 2016 diesel vehicles. At the heart of the case, the manufacturer falsely advertised its diesel models as having reduced emissions. Volkswagen was aware of the inaccuracy of this statement prior to releasing its extensive eco-friendly ad campaign. Instead of retracting the ad campaign and revisiting the emission issue, the manufacturer chose to equip the vehicles with defeat devices that bypass, defeat, or render inoperative a required element of the vehicle's emission system. Hello, I'm Cannon Keeler, and this is Donna Brown. As a follow-up to our investigation into Volkswagen 2015 Dieselgate scandal, we are taking this opportunity to present this video that examines how Volkswagen prioritized profits over ethics and the steps they took to regain their reputation in the automotive industry. Our goal today is for those who work in public relations to understand the components of image restoration theory as it pertains to the Dieselgate crisis and recognize the areas in which Volkswagen both succeeded and failed in its response, learning key insights in crisis communications. Image restoration theory, or IRT, was developed by William Binet in 1995 to equip individuals and organizations with communication strategies to navigate and minimize damage to public image and relations. The basic idea of the theory is that maintaining public image through communication should be at the forefront of every crisis due to the fragile nature of community response. In this theory, Binet outlines five distinct strategies to navigate the communication that follows the crisis. Denial attempts to remove the connection between the offensive act and the organization. Evading responsibility attempts to lessen the organization's perceived responsibility for the act. Reducing offensiveness accepts responsibility but tries to minimize the damage or the degree of negative feeling or damage caused by the act. Corrective action promises to repair the damage from the offensive act and prevent reoccurrence. Finally, mortification is an admission of guilt followed by a public request for forgiveness in exchange. It is important to note that these strategies have little to do with whether the accusations or events that led to the crisis are true or not. The public only has to believe something negative has taken place. Rather, it gives organizations and individuals a framework for how to communicate through the crisis, regardless of its validity. It is of the utmost importance that when there is a formal response to a crisis, it is done as quickly as possible with the highest amount of accuracy given at the moment. Each of the five strategies can prove useful given the context. However, organizations do not rely just on one of these strategies to handle communication after a crisis, but rather they use a few at once. If done properly, this can prove to be highly effective communication strategy. It is also extremely beneficial for organizations and individuals to be as honest as possible when making public comments. If the public catches the accused in a lie, it will damage the public image of the organization much more than if they simply took the blame and admitted responsibility outright. This is what caused Dieselgate to be so much more harmful to Volkswagen's brand image than they imagined. Volkswagen was well aware of the defeat devices and still decided to utilize denial. Honesty and swiftness consistently make the best foundation for developing a crisis response. If a response fails to be produced, the more suspicious the public becomes, leaving the media to fill the gaps, exacerbating the crisis further. The media does not have the whole picture, leading to the information that is spread around to be, at best, educated guesses, and at worst, harmful conspiracies. Now let's continue further into the specifics of Volkswagen's Dieselgate crisis response.
To best understand the components of the crisis, it's important that we understand the timeline of events as they occurred, beginning with Volkswagen realizing they couldn't meet emission standards through their acknowledgement and remediation of efforts. Then we must evaluate their response as it relates to Benet's image restoration theory. In the mid 2000s, Volkswagen began developing its four-cylinder diesel in an attempt to produce a vehicle that not only got good fuel mileage, but also met U.S. emission requirements. Around late 2006, project managers came to the realization that the newly developed diesel engines would not meet U.S. criteria. At this time, it is assumed that the engineers, without upper management acknowledgement, took it upon themselves to create a cheat device that would allow the vehicles to run cleaner while undergoing emissions testing. In 2014, West Virginia University and the Council on Clean Transportation released information finding that a Jetta TDI and a Passat TDI produced higher emissions while in use than they did while undergoing testing. In 2014, Volkswagen recalled its diesel vehicles. In 2015, the new emissions testing saw little improvement because of the recall efforts. A few months later, Volkswagen admitted that they installed devices designed to defeat the emission control systems. In September 2015, it was determined by the EPA that Volkswagen violated the Clean Air Act. Volkswagen then admitted that 11 million vehicles had the cheat devices installed and set aside $7.3 billion to correct the issue. It wasn't until September 2015 that Volkswagen finally acted. Their response was to create an investigative team to evaluate the situation and accept the resignation of its CEO, Martin Winterkorn. Winterkorn claimed that as far as he knew, there had been no wrongdoing. Later, the United States CEO would admit that they totally screwed up. Benet's image repair theory is prompted by an attack that threatens a reputation. This attack is composed of an offensive act and an accusation or responsibility for the act. Then, image repair theory is utilized to respond to the accusation. IRT is composed of strategies of denial, evading responsibility, and reducing offensiveness, as well as corrective action and mortification. As we see in the timeline, Volkswagen's response to the crisis was delayed. Not only had they realized their problem 8 years prior, but they also still weren't prepared to respond to the 2014 findings. When they did, they used denial, attempted to minimize the situation, expressed mortification, and offered corrective action in the form of repairing or buying back the vehicles involved, as well as issuing a formal apology.
To offer some recommendations for other organizations hoping to learn from Volkswagen's Dieselgate and their crisis response, both in terms of effective and harmful, here are a few key takeaways to consider. Firstly, as mentioned earlier, honesty is the best policy. Organizations should do their diligence to uphold local, federal, and global laws as they pertain to specific organizations. Volkswagen drastically harmed its reputation for its illegal and deceptive practicing, choosing to cheat the system and lie when they were caught. A swift response is paramount to silencing outside voices and minimizing speculation and rumor. Volkswagen remained silent about its wrongdoing for too long, leading to outside speculation and a worsening public image when the truth of a defeat device was finally uncovered. When a wrong is committed, it might prove useful to utilize the reducing offensiveness, corrective action, and mortification communication strategies. These strategies, in conjunction, minimize the perceived damage, offer to right the wrongs done, and take the full blame for the harmful actions. Volkswagen was able to employ these tactics and successfully regain the trust of consumers and the public. Finally, organizations should prepare a detailed plan of action in case of a sudden crisis. With the rise of social media, a crisis can happen at any given moment. Make a plan that specifically names individuals and the actions they should take in responding to a crisis. Gather facts quickly, speak truthfully, and have a detailed direction for the crisis response team. Even if organizations follow every letter of the law and do everything ethically, the crisis may still arise. It is, it is almost certainly not a matter of if, but when. Organizations that are prepared to take on a sudden crisis will be able to minimize damage with the correct communication strategies.
In times of crisis, it's important that a timely, heartfelt response be at the ready. Had Volkswagen attempted, had Volkswagen's attempt at redemption come earlier, it could have possibly saved their reputation as well as millions of dollars. With this presentation, we hope that those in public relations better understand image restoration theory as it pertains to the Volkswagen scandal and can recognize the areas in which Volkswagen both succeeded and failed in its response. Here is the list of references for our presentation today. Thank you for joining us.